The sun had barely risen when I saw them, black SUVs barreling down the Date road, clouds of dust trailing like whispers of trouble. I set my cup of coffee down on the porch rail, my heart pounding as the first of them stepped out. He wore mirrored sunglasses and a vest that read HOA Enforcement Unit. My instincts kicked in. Something wasn't right. "This is a legal HOA inspection," he shouted, brandishing a ridiculous-looking paintball gun like it was real firepower. I remained on the porch, arms crossed, eyes narrowing. As a retired Navy SEAL, this land felt like an extension of my soul, every inch hard-earned. "You boys picked the wrong ranch," I growled. One guy, the loudest, had jumped out of the SUV and shouted, "Sweep the barns! Secure the perimeter!" It was some kind of joke. These clowns were not here to find compliance. They were looking to intimidate. The third man whipped out a clipboard and began photographing my tractor as if it were evidence for a crime. But there was no crime here, just me and my determination. "You'll have 10 seconds to explain who you are before this goes south," I warned, my voice calm but firm. Instead of retreating, the mirror sunglass man yelled back, "You're in violation of HOA Code 52A. That did it. There's no such thing as HOA Code 52A. I stepped off the porch, adrenaline coursing through my veins. The man pointed that toy gun at me, trembling. "Back up." In 2 quick movements, I disarmed him and had him pinned against the Date. The other 2 froze, eyes wide as saucers. Everybody on the ground. I barked. They dropped like timid children caught stealing cookies. At that moment, Murphy, my German shepherd of questionable temperament but boundless loyalty, bolted from the barn, barking ferociously. The man I had pinned practically wet himself, while the others scrambled to escape my silent canine sentinel. "Frank!" I heard Mrs. Larson yell from across the field, her voice slicing through the tension like a knife. "Everything's fine, Mrs. L." I called back, though my insides churned. These fools weren't strangers. They were from the new Pine Hollow development, the same HOA bunch who had harassed me for months, wanting my land to merge with their little kingdom. "Please don't hurt us," one of them whimpered as I tied them up with zip ties I kept for emergencies. The sheriff's office was the next phone call I made. Half an hour later, Sheriff Harris rolled in, lights flashing, dust swirling. He stepped out of his cruiser, raising an eyebrow at the trio on the ground. "Jesus, Frank, what in God's name happened here?" "Fake HOA cops," I replied tersely, watching their faces go pale when the sheriff started questioning them. They were a motley crew, and their identities unraveled quickly. The ringleader, Kyle, stammered out something about being part of a special compliance division. "It doesn't exist," I said, but I knew who was behind this. Ted Warner, the real estate mogul who'd sent a barrage of lowball offers to me. He's trying to scare me into selling. As the sheriff loaded up the 3 men, I felt a pit forming in my stomach. This wasn't just about intimidation. Ted was clearly planning something more violent. Once everyone was gone, the silence settled heavily over my ranch like a storm cloud. I surveyed the landscape that stretched out before me, my father's hard work, my own sweat and blood etched into the land, and knew I wasn't going to let Ted Warner win. The next morning, I woke early, determination fueling me. I wouldn't let this fester. I needed to hit back and hard. After months of contemplation and resourcefulness, I drove down to the county records office. One lady there, Denise, squinted in the morning light, reading the tension in my posture. "What's got you all riled up, Frank?" "I need everything on the Pine Hollow HOA, maps, census, complaints, especially anything involving Ted Warner," I said, my voice steady but urgent. "Are you in trouble?" she asked, her brow furrowed. "I'm about to be," I replied. As she clicked away at her keyboard, I found myself tracing the edges of the file I planned to build, paperwork, evidence, leads. While I waited, I made calls, reached out to old connections from my Navy days. I relayed the situation to Mike, a cyber specialist. "I need help tracing permits, finding dirt on Ted. Can you dig deep?" I said with barely suppressed urgency. "Trouble has a funny way of finding you," Mike replied with a chuckle, but I didn't find humor in the situation. Denise handed me a file that felt thicker than it should. "Here's everything that's public," she said, her expression darkening. "But off the record, Ted's got his hands in a lot of pockets around here. Judges, surveyors, county deputies. My insides writhed. I'd suspected this. I wasn't about to let him control my fate. As I picked through the papers later that night, I discovered evidence of Ted's illegal maneuvers, fake surveys, and bribes stitched into the very fabric of this community. But then I found the nail in the coffin, a recent email bragging about how they'd either break me or burn me out. The panic crept in again, but so did resolve. I saved the emails and printed copies, but I wouldn't call the sheriff just yet. No, this wasn't time for legal procedures. It was time for a counteroffensive. With fury and purpose, I planned each step as night fell, envisioning the moves I would make to take back my life. Little did I know, the taste of revenge would soon burn hotter than the flames of my charred barn. My phone buzzed before dawn, pulling me from an uneasy sleep. I sat bolt upright, heart racing, and swiped the screen. It was an alert from my motion detectors. Someone was on my land. I bolted from bed, grabbing my rifle and racing out of the house. Murphy was already at the door, bouncing in place, sharp and alert. In the dim light of early morning, I strained to hear any movement. The old barn loomed in the darkness ahead, a shadow of what once was, and a target for the vultures circling above. I crept through the tall grass, the cool breeze sending chills down my spine. There! A silhouette darted into the shadows near the remains of my barn. My instincts kicked in, adrenaline pumping. I took cover behind a large oak tree, breath steadying as I peered through the scope. Two figures were silhouetted against the rising sun, masked and armed, fidgeting with something near the barn ruins. A crowbar glinted ominously in one man's hand as he glanced furtively around. I dialed Sheriff Harris's number with my other hand, trying to keep my voice steady. "Sheriff, I have intruders on the property. 2 of them. They look armed and are headed straight for my water pump." "Hold tight, Frank," he replied, his voice low and serious. "Give me a moment." No moment could be spared. I had to act. I slipped around the tree, keeping my breath quiet, my eyes fixed on the culprits who were now bending over the remnants of my well. "Drop everything," I shouted, stepping into the clearing with my rifle raised, but not ready to fire. "Back away from the water pump." Both men startled and scrambled upright, eyes wide behind their masks. One dropped the crowbar, while the other, the bolder of the two, stepped forward, trying to assert some false bravado. "This is private property. We have the right to be here." "Not like this, you don't," I shot back, voice unwavering. Murphy, low and throaty, lunged forward, barking ferociously, unnerving them even further. The masked man hesitated and then suddenly dove toward the pump, but I wasn't going to let that happen. I fired a warning shot into the ground. I said, "Drop it." The sound echoed like a clap of thunder across the field. The remaining thug stopped, glancing over his shoulder with panic. "This is crazy, man. We were just told to." I cut him off, swinging my rifle toward him. 10 seconds until I typed "shot fired" into this phone. "Do you want it to be you?" The fear in their eyes was palpable as they dropped their tools and raised their hands. "We were just following orders." "Ted, you know how he is," one of them babbled, desperation edging into his voice. I didn't care whose orders they were following. They were trespassing and threatening my livelihood. "You're going to regret this," I warned, stepping forward to zip-tie them. But as I reached for them, there was a loud crack from the trees nearby, cutting through the tension. "Frank!" It was Sheriff Harris, barreling in with his cruiser and 2 deputies in tow, hands in the air. "I've got them here," I yelled, while the men trembled under the command in Harris's voice. One stormed past me, trying to make a run for it. Before I lifted my weapon, Murphy sprang, sinking his teeth into the hem of the fugitive's pants and yanking him down to the dirt. "Not today!" I backed, rushing over, zip-tie in hand. With a swift motion, I restrained him and stood back, breathing heavily. By the time Harris approached, the men were whining and cursing, trying to explain themselves in frantic whispers. "We just came to scare you. Just following orders." "Whose orders?" Harris demanded, searching their faces for who might finally crack. "Warner," one of them blurted, voice panicking. "We didn't know you had a dog." A jolt of recognition raced through me. This wasn't a random job. This was personal. Ted Warner sent you. I asked, surprising myself with how calm I sounded. His getting bolder. Harris clenched his jaw, voice firm as he ordered the deputies to take the men in for questioning. We'll find out what you lot were really up to. I watched them bundle into the back of the cruiser and felt the satisfaction of having defended my land crackling through my veins like electricity. But it quickly dimmed, realizing this was far from over. Frank, do you realize what this means? Harris asked. We need to put a stop to Warner, once and for all. I nodded, mind racing. I needed ammunition, not bullets, but hard evidence. If Warner was starting a war, I would go all in. But before I could voice my thoughts, my phone buzzed again, a message from a number I didn't recognize. I opened it, heart racing as I read the words. Asterisk, you think this is over? We have eyes on you. Asterisk. My stomach sank. This was worse than I thought. Warner wasn't just focused on intimidation. He had a plan, and I'd become a pawn in his twisted game. We need to act, and fast, I said to Harris, urgency thickening my voice. He's got people on the ground watching. We can't let him think he's won. Harris clenched his jaw, a flicker of resolve in his gaze. I'll get the team together. We'll go after him, legally this time. I have evidence about his connections. Suddenly, Murphy started barking again, his growl deepening. I turned just in time to see shadowy figures moving beyond the tree line. More of them. The night was closing in, but I wouldn't back down. One of the masked figures emerged, and before I could shout a warning, he hurled something at me. My instincts kicked in, but the explosion of sound, an air horn and a cloud of green smoke, filled the clearing. I coughed, vision clouding, but I wasn't incapacitated. Get down! Harris shouted, instinctively diving for cover as the smoke rolled in like a living thing. They want you to panic. I gasped, grabbing Murphy's collar as we stumbled backward. Don't let them get away. More figures bolted toward the barn, shadows flailing in the chaos. Panic surged through me as I drew my weapon, awaiting a clear shot. Cover fire. I shouted to Harris, who was regrouping with his deputies. But as I turned to intercept the intruders, I saw one of them aimed right for me, a crowbar raised high and ready to swing. Time slowed as I took aim at their silhouette, adrenaline hammering in my veins. I wouldn't allow them to take another inch of my land. Not this time. I squeezed the trigger just as my vision cleared, and then everything shattered. The crack of gunfire echoed through the smoky air just as the intruder swung the crowbar down, missing me by inches. In the chaos, I could see his eyes wide with shock as he stumbled backward, tripping over his own feet. Adrenaline flooded my system. This was no longer a game. It was a battle for my home. Over there. Harris barked to his deputies, pointing towards the fleeing figures. Do not let them escape. Murphy was already on the move, weaving through the haze toward one of the intruders, his low growl rumbling like thunder. I kept my rifle trained on the man nearest to me, ready for any sudden movements that could threaten my ground. As the smoke began to dissipate, I caught sight of the other intruders scrambling for the woods at the edge of my property. Panic gripped me. They couldn't get away, not after everything they'd done. Harris! I shouted, urgency lacing my voice. They're getting away. We can't let them slip through our fingers. He nodded sharply. Deputies, cover that side. Frank, come with me. We dashed through the clearing, the smell of burnt grass and smoke filling my lungs. I could still see the green swirling around, but nothing could cloud my resolve. I took a deep breath, racing towards the closest intruder. Murphy darted to my side, barking fiercely. The man I was after stumbled as I closed in, frantically trying to catch his breath. You think you can escape? I snarled, adrenaline sharpening my instincts. He fumbled to catch himself and reached for a weapon, but before he could draw it, I tackled him to the ground. Tell me who sent you. I hissed, pinning him down. Get off me, he sputtered, panic flashing in his eyes. I didn't want any part of this. It was Warner. He said it to be easy. My grip tightened. Easy? You think terrorizing a farmer is easy? As he squirmed beneath me, I felt a burst of satisfaction at having the upper hand, even in this maelstrom. Just then, a shout from Harris cut through the tension. "Frank, the others are making a run for it. We need to get out there." "Go!" I shouted back, unwilling to let this one get away. I pulled him back up to his knees. "You're not leaving until you tell me everything. They wanted to sabotage your water supply. They thought it would drive you off the land." He wheezed, eyes darting. "It was supposed to be a scare tactic. I didn't think it'd go this far." I felt the weight of that statement like an anvil. They planned to destroy my water? That's sick. You're either too stupid or too cowardly to know the danger of this. "Please, I didn't sign up for this. Just let me go." He whined, anxiety spilling from his voice, fingers trembling. Just as I considered what to do next, a loud crash rang from the far side of the property where the remaining intruders had made their escape. I turned toward the noise, my heart racing. Harris! In the distance, I could see two figures making a break for the thick trees bordering my land. They were climbing over the fence, panic written on their faces. I pushed the man down and sprinted toward the chaos. "Frank, wait!" Harris yelled after me, but I was already moving, fueled by a mix of rage and determination. With every step, I could feel the ground shaking beneath me, and the world narrowed to just those intruders. The trees loomed closer, their shadows deepening, and I knew that if they got in there, we might never find them. I couldn't allow that. I had no plan, just a gut feeling that something bigger was at stake. I edged my way around the overgrown underbrush, the darkness swallowing me whole. In the distance, I could hear the rustling of branches and quickened breaths. "Don't think you can hide." I shouted, my voice steadier than I felt. I moved stealthily, ducking low, ears straining to catch any sound. Only silence met me. My heart pounded like a drum, echoing the urgency thrumming through my veins. Suddenly, I spotted movement. Two shapes creeping through the dense foliage, scrambling as they tried to cover their trail. "You're not getting away." I bellowed, taking off after them like a shot. One of them glanced back, eyes wide with fear. "Help!" he screamed, just as I burst through the foliage, emerging into an open clearing behind the trees. And there they were, cornered like rats. I leveled my rifle, sweat trickling down my brow. "It's over. Drop your weapons." The first man raised his arms in surrender, while his partner fumbled awkwardly with a hidden knife. But before he could strike, Murphy lunged, teeth bared and growling, and the man slipped, falling face first onto the ground. "Enough!" I shouted, stepping forward. "You think you can turn this place into a battleground? You have no idea who you're messing with." As I cuffed the second intruder and pulled him up, I felt something shift in me, a surge of pride, of purpose. This land was my inheritance, and I would protect it, no matter the odds. Behind me, I could hear footsteps approaching. Harris and his deputies emerged from the trees, weapons drawn but relaxation on their faces. "Nice work." Just in time, Harris said, breathing heavily, "What's the scoop?" I asked, not letting go of the man I had restrained. They were making their way towards the east end of the property. "We've got the base surrounded. No one escapes today." But just as we thought we had the situation under control, an unmarked truck roared up the Date Road, skidding to a stop. I recognized a vehicle from the two previous attacks, and dread settled like a stone in my stomach as the door swung open. Out stepped a tall figure, sharply dressed, a wild look in their eyes. Ted Warner himself had arrived on the scene. "Frank Carter," he bellowed, a manic smile creeping onto his face. "You thought you could stop this? You have no idea the forces at play here." The tension crackled in the air, and I felt my grip on the man in front of me tighten. "You have no authority here. Warner, your games are over." "Oh, but they are just beginning," he replied, voice low and menacing. "I didn't come to negotiate. I came to end this." My heart sank as he pulled out a device from his pocket, pressing a button that lit up in a crimson glow. My breath caught in my throat as realization hit. This wasn't going to be a simple confrontation. It was about to turn into a real-life war. The crimson glow from Warner's device pulsed ominously as he smirked, gripping it tightly. "You don't know what you're up against," he taunted, his eyes glinting with malice. I felt the air thicken with tension, a low hum of danger palpable in the silence that had fallen over the clearing. "Drop it, Warner," I warned, heart hammering in my chest. "Whatever you're planning, it stops here." "Oh, Frank," he cooed mockingly. "You're too late. I have friends in high places. Even if you take me down, this entire operation will reshape your precious little world." I couldn't let him run his mouth any longer. "Get on the ground," I shouted, raising my rifle. But before I could react further, an explosion of sound rocked the air, shaking the ground beneath us as a flash of light erupted from the device in Warner's hand, illuminating his face for just a moment. The wildness of his expression caught in an echo of shock and joy. A deafening roar followed the flash, and with it, the earth trembled underfoot. Murphy yelped, darting back as I stumbled, disoriented by the noise. "Get down!" I yelled to Harris and the deputies, who were already crouching behind the trees. At first, I thought there had been an explosion from the device, but then I noticed Warner grinning wider, his eyes alight with frenzy. In disbelief, I realized he hadn't set off an explosive. He was triggering something far more insidious, a smoke grenade. Thick clouds of colorful fumes surged around us, choking visibility and filling the air with a sickly sweet scent. "Go, boys!" Warner shouted, and the accompanying intruders, now emboldened, began to scatter in every direction. "No!" I bellowed, but it was too late. The thickening fog swallowed them up, obscuring their frantic escape. I could feel panic rise in my chest as I blinked hard, trying to clear my vision, but it only got worse. "Frank!" Harris yelled, struggling to find direction amidst the swirling colors. "We have to regroup. We can't lose them. I'm not letting them get away." I growled, pushing through the haze, every instinct screaming at me to take action. I had to find Warner. My heart raced as I charged in the direction I last saw him move. The sounds of struggle and chaos faded into the background, Murphy at my side, guiding me through the thick cloud. I could sense Warner's presence lingering nearby, like a shadow taunting me. Suddenly, something caught my attention. We were near the edge of the property, just at the barrier where the trees met the open fields. Beyond that lay the old quarry, a gaping maw carved into the earth, and I could hear the distant echo of a car engine grinding to life. They were getting away. "Stop!" I cried, hurling myself toward the sound. Not another foot. Two figures emerged through the smoke, and instinctively I raised my weapon. But before I could pull the trigger, the world tilted violently. The ground lurched beneath me, a ripple of earth shifting unnaturally, and then, all at once, a thunderous crash erupted, shattering the silence. To my horror, I turned just in time to see the quarry's hillside begin to crumble, rocks cascading down in an avalanche of earth. "No!" I shouted, scrambling back as the ground ripped apart, sending stones tumbling toward the fleeing intruders. The sound was deafening. Rocks thundered down, crashing violently into the quarry below. "Frank, get back!" Harris reached for me as I stumbled, eyes wide with terror. The landscape was shifting, and in a split second, I understood. Warner's device was more than just a simple device. It was his leverage to make this whole operation explode in chaos, meant to create a diversion and unleash something destructive. It hit me like a wrecking ball. His using the quarry. I yelled, urgency coursing through me. His triggering a collapse. Just then, through the waves of smoke, Warner's laughter rang out, maniacal and chilling. "This is just the beginning, Frank. You see, I don't just play games. I change the rules." My breath hitched as I watched in disbelief, the ground shattering around us. Harris turned, eyes widening. "We have to move. Now." But there was no time. I pivoted around, my mind racing. Everyone was scrambling, desperately trying to escape the cascading rocks and enveloping smoke. "Murphy, come!" I yelled, beckoning my dog to follow. We huddled closer, losing sight of everything in the chaos. Everything felt suspended in time, a cacophony of thuds against the earth thundering around us. Then I caught a flash of light. Warner had darted toward the quarry's edge, desperately scrambling toward an old pickup truck parked at a safe distance. "Stop him!" I screamed, charging after him through the smoke. As I neared the vehicle, it fired up with a roar, dust swirling up around the tires. Warner slammed on the gas, but I wouldn't let him go. Not this time. I shouted, lunging for the side door. Warner's eyes widened as I made contact with the truck, gripping the handle just as he turned the wheel, throwing the vehicle into a wild spin. In a blur, Murphy and I were thrown against the date. I scrambled to my feet, furious sobs escaping my throat as I saw the truck careening toward the edge of the cliff, toward the crumbling quarry. Harris and the deputies erupted from the smoke behind me, mace shadows grasping for their weapons. "Frank, no!" Harris screamed. But time slowed as I watched Warner abandon the truck, leaping from the cab just as the truck teetered on the edge. And then, as if time had held its breath, it tipped, wheels spinning as it fell into the abyss. A thunderous crash following as rocks and earth were disturbed, sending spouts of dirt flying into the air. In that moment, everything crystallized. Warner's twisted laughter pierced the air for a split second as he tried to regain his footing, a desperate look on his face. Then it was gone, swallowed whole in the embrace of the earth. As I steadied myself, a sense of disbelief washed over me. The rumble of the quarry echoed in my chest, but my heart raced with victory. Whatever darkness Warner had cast over my home, it was finally lifting. As the dust settled, the air thick with the scent of earth and smoke, I felt Harris's hand clasp my shoulder, grounding me. "You did it, Frank," he said, disbelief still hanging on his voice as the distant sounds of sirens approached. But then I felt a tremor underneath, more forces at play than I had first thought. Looking back toward the quarry, I realized it wasn't over. The ground still shifted ominously beneath our feet, a reminder that chaos rarely left alone was always at risk of returning. But for now, we had won. This battle belonged to us. Yet the landscape bore witness to the true depth of the treachery we had survived, and the question lingered. What other forces were still lurking, waiting for the right moment to rise again from the shadows? The thunderous echoes of the past faded into silence, but that silence left an unsettling chill in the air, suggesting this wasn't the end. It was merely a new beginning, a fresh chapter teetering on the edge where danger and safety danced together, waiting to unleash the next unexpected twist.